Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. We're going to go ahead and get started with this afternoon's meeting regarding the proposed charter amendments. As always, we are live on YouTube, and so we will be airing this information out on YouTube. So, related to the proposed charter amendments, we continue on with this meeting. My name, for the record, is Laura Cruz-Acosta. I'm the Communications Director for the City of El Paso, and so we begin with the beginning. First, overview. For those of you who are not familiar, the city was incorporated in May 17th, 1873. It was done under a special law from the state legislature, SB number 254. It was a special legislative charter. What they found in the whole process the state did is that it was inefficient for the state to manage all city charters across the large state of Texas. So they developed what's known as a Home Rule amendments to the Texas Constitution in 1912. From that point on, the city of El Paso adopted its first local charter in 1917. And the purpose of the charter amendments overall, when we look at them, is that we look at focusing on sound governance, making sure that we're deploying the resources that we have most efficiently, and also reducing the costs associated with doing business as a municipal government. We also look to align with the current high-performing operational model for the city, for our organization, and we are also looking to streamline the processes and eliminate any kind of roadblocks for any kind of future process. One thing that I'll mention here is that the charter amendments are reviewed every 2 years and voted on. They have the potential to be voted on every 2 years. So for example, we are now looking at the charter amendments right now this year. The next time, assuming that the charter amendments move forward to a ballot, the next time that we can look at these charter amendments or vote on them are actually going to be in 2025. So the current charter amendments are defined by the organization, powers, functions, and essential procedures of the city government. The structure of the charter as it exists right now is incorporation and powers, nominations and elections, the city council, mayor, city manager, civil service, public finance, and the adoption and transition. The last time, as I mentioned to you, remember we can update this every 2 years, the last time that this was amended was in 2018, and it was done so to adjust the members of council's annual base salary. So a quick overview in terms of the process for the amendment. In January 31st of 2022, that was this year, the council had actually approved the final list of items that were to be submitted to the ad hoc charter advisory committee. In February, the council members appointed each their own individual person for the charter committee. And then they're up to 9 meetings, and so they're going through those meetings very quickly, and they're going to be giving a progress report at the end of this month. In June, they'll be bringing forward recommendations to the council members, and from now through July, we'll be hosting different community meetings and providing updates to the council members. On the 2nd of August and the 16th of August, there is a plan to introduce and adopt the ordinances ordering the elections. And then the 24th, before the 24th of October, we'll post a notice of elections to include the time and place, assuming that the council does move forward with an election. From the 27th of October through the 4th of November, we'll have early voting, again, assuming that we call an election. And then on the 8th of November is actual election day. The last day to canvass for the results of the ballot are the 19th of November. So also on the call, joining us virtually is Ms. Laura Prine as well as Ms. Kristen Hamilton. And Ms. Prine will go over the following amendments. Ms. Laura?
Good afternoon. Yes, I will be going over the proposed amendments that the Ad hoc Charter Committee has been reviewing along with the current status for each proposed amendment. The first amendment is to section 2.1A regarding city elections, and this is to evaluate the date of municipal elections. And so the Ad hoc Charter Committee was going to review whether to maintain the city elections in November or change the date back to May. In 2018, the voters, through a charter amendment, changed the election date from May to November of the election year. So as of 2018, the city has been holding elections, municipal elections, in the month of November. So at this point, the committee has reviewed the amendment and they have chosen to leave the election date in November. However, they are requesting the public's input prior to making a final recommendation to City Council. The next section is to 2.1B, officers elected, and this is to amend the language in the charter stating that the 10-year cap does not apply when a council member is filling an unexpired term, in order to allow that council member to serve 2 4-year terms. On this proposed amendment, the committee has decided to move forward with the recommendation and to amend the language in the charter to allow a member filling an unexpired term to serve 2 4-year terms, regardless of whether it exceeds the 10-year cap. Next slide. The next amendment is to section 2.4A, number of districts, and this is to amend the language. Currently, there are 8 council district representatives. This amendment would increase the number of council seats from 8 to 9 once the census year shows that there's 900,000 or more residents in the city of El Paso. So this would allow the number of district offices to go from 8 to 9 when the population hits 900,000 versus going from 8 to 10 when the population hits 1 million, as currently stated in the charter. On this proposed amendment, the committee is not making a recommendation to move forward with this amendment. The next section is to 2.4B for districting commission, and this is to look at an independent districting committee process. Because these 2 amendments are tied to the census year, the districting commission, the Ad hoc Charter Commission, is not moving forward with the recommendations at this time because they feel that there's ample time for a future committee to look at these 2 amendments, given that it's tied to a census year. Next slide. The next 2 proposed amendments are related, and they're to section 3.1 to the creation, composition, powers, and duties. And this proposed amendment would allow each district representative the discretion and authority to employ 2 full-time employees and to replace the language of having a chief legislative aide in each council representative office to change the legislative aide title to chief of staff. And on these 2 recommendations, the Ad hoc Charter Committee is not moving forward with these recommendations. They have denied the proposed amendment at this time. Next slide. The next section is to 3.2 to City Council salaries. In the last charter election, the voters voted to align City Council representative salaries to the median household income according to the Housing Urban Development. So this recommendation would prevent a decrease in the council salaries should the median household income fall below the current City Council salaries. And on this recommendation, the committee has decided not to move forward with this amendment and to deny the proposed amendment. The next section is 3.5A on city council meetings. And the amendment to the language would allow city council to adjust for emergencies or city holidays and allow less than a majority of council to call a special meeting. After reviewing this proposed amendment, the committee has decided to move forward with the amendment to allow city council to reschedule city council meetings by resolution in the event that the council date falls on a city holiday. But the council must still meet no less than 2 regular times per month. And this amendment would also allow the mayor to cancel a meeting if needed due to a federal, state, or local declared emergency. Next slide. The next amendment is to section 3.9 to ordinances in general. Currently, the city clerk's office is required to have a copy of all city council ordinances available in a hard copy printed form in the city clerk's office for review upon request. The proposed action would allow the city clerk's office to make available copies of ordinances in an electronic form versus than having to print a hard copy of every single ordinance. However, the city clerk's office would still provide hard copies upon request. So on this proposed amendment, the committee has decided to go ahead and approve the recommendation and move forward with this amendment to city council. The next article is Article 3, Section 3.10B, emergency ordinances, and this is to align to state law that requires a 1-hour notice for the introduction of an emergency ordinance. Currently, the charter requires a 2-hour notice if council should need to meet to discuss an emergency ordinance. If there's a public urgent necessity that needs to be discussed. And on this proposed amendment, the committee has decided to go ahead and move forward with a recommendation in order to align with the state requirement to allow for 1-hour notice to the public to discuss a matter of urgent public necessity. Next slide. The next amendment is to section 3.18 to lease, franchise, and conveyance. And this is to make it more transparent and identify which type of real estate transactions can be approved by resolution, such as an easement that's under $50,000 or a certain lease, and review any other transactions that are allowed. This proposed amendment is still under review by the ad hoc charter committee, and they have asked the city attorney's office to return with recommended language that would simplify the process for the sale of a property or lease and include the distinction between the term of the lease. The next section is to 3.118 to the referendum in the charter, and this is to allow for a referendum regarding ordinances imposing a fee or maintenance of city right-of-ways and allow for a referendum using best practices. On this recommendation, the ad hoc charter committee has decided not to move forward with this proposed amendment at this time. Next slide. The next amendment is to section 3.11 for the initiative petition process, and this is to review the process and align to best practices. So on this amendment, the committee has taken action to keep the requirement of 5% of voters who participated in the last general city election. However, they are recommending that the requirement for a second petition is removed. Currently, a second petition is required if an ordinance is not enacted or if enacted in an amended form by City Council. The committee has voted to remove the requirement for a second petition. However, they are asking to add a requirement that the initiative be placed on the ballot of the next general city election instead of having to call for a special election in this case. On this amendment, the ad hoc charter committee is particularly interested in hearing input from the public before making their final recommendation to the City Council. Next slide. The next amendment is to section 4.1B, to powers of the mayor. And this is to clarify the role of intergovernmental relationships and to review the clause that the mayor breaks tie votes and to allow the mayor to vote on all matters before the city council instead of only when breaking a tie vote. This amendment is still also under review by the ad hoc charter committee. They've asked the city attorney's office to return with language that would clarify and solidify that the mayor's responsibility is for intergovernmental affairs. And the committee is also recommending that the clause regarding the mayor's tie-breaking and veto capacity is removed because they are recommending that the mayor vote on every single item brought forth before the city council instead. And they're also still reviewing the mayor's intergovernmental relationships. So this amendment to 4.1B is still under review. The committee has not made a final recommendation yet. Next slide. I will now turn it over to Ms. Cancelleri that will go over the proposed amendments to Article 6.
Good afternoon. For the record, Claudia Cancelleri, Employee Relations Officer with City Human Resources. Article 6.1-4, which covers Civil Service Commission. Proposed amendment is to clarify the language for appointment to the commission and align to best practices. The proposed action by the committee is still under review. We don't have a final recommendation yet. We will come back to that at a later date. Section 6.1-12 is also being proposed to clarify the process for hearing officers to better serve on behalf of the commission and align to best practices. The proposed action by the committee on this item was to recommend making the hearing officers independent contractors. Section 6.2, which covers the division of city service, was to clarify definitions and positions considered unclassified and aligned to best practices. This item is also still under review by the committee, and we will have an update at a later time. Section 6.5-2 covers Rule of 5, and we would like to align that to best practices. Section 6.7-1 and 6.8-1 is being proposed to streamline the process so that we would be able to be competitive in our recruitment and promotional process. The proposed action by the committee at this time is to delete the test qualification and the Rule of 5 so that we may align with best practices. Section 6.13-11 is to eliminate the police and fire department pension cap in order to align to state statute. And the proposed action by the committee is to eliminate the police and fire department pension cap in order to align to state statute.
Okay, so that completes all of the amendments that are being proposed. And so currently where we're at is on, we've had a meeting on the 27th of April. We've had a meeting on the 2nd of May. And we also had an ad hoc charter advisory committee meeting on the 5th of May. We're currently on Monday. Today is Monday, the May the 9th, and so we're here at the Esperanza Cosa Moreno Library. The next meeting and the last of this collection of community meetings will take place on May the 12th. That's Thursday at 5:30 at the Mission Valley Regional Command Center. And today's meeting was scheduled for 4 o'clock, but there was a bit of confusion in terms of the scheduling, so we apologize for the late start today. But as I mentioned to you, the 12th of May is the next meeting. It's Thursday at 5:30 at the Mission Valley Regional Command Center. Just a quick overview once more in terms of the amendments, the amendment process that we have here. It is related to, we're currently in February-June timeframe, that second lineup in terms of the appointment that took place on the 1st of February. We're continuing on in terms of the meetings. The next meeting for the committee will actually be not this Thursday, but the following Thursday. And they will then go forward to the council members and report actually on the last council meeting in May. And Laura, remind me, correct me if, in terms of the date, that's gonna be on the 23rd or?
Yes, the ad hoc charter committee will present an update to council on Monday, May 23rd during the work session.
Correct, yes. So that May 10th is incorrect. It was scheduled for tomorrow. However, unfortunately, due to lack of quorum at the last ad hoc committee, the committee could not move forward with their report to the council members. So that will take place on the 23rd, Monday, the 23rd, before the city council members in terms of an update on the status of the amendment process. And then, of course, on the 6th of June, we'll come forward with the final recommendations to the council. And assuming that all is approved by the council members, they will move forward with early voting on the 27th. They'll call the election in August, move forward with early voting at the end of October, and then November the 8th is the election day. And with that, that completes the presentation this evening. We want to thank you for those of you who are joining us online. We appreciate y'all joining us here for the time being. And again, the next meeting for the Ad Hoc Charter Advisory Committee is going to be at City Hall. It's going to be a virtual meeting. It's a hybrid meeting, excuse me. It's going to take place at City Hall at 3:30. And it is not this Thursday, but the following Thursday that is going to take place, 3:30 at City Hall, second floor in the main conference room. It is open to the public for those of you who want to join us. Again, thank you again for those of you who are joining us, and we appreciate it. Have a good evening.